What's up, guys? We're back with another video this week. This time we're going to be talking about intangible benefits of some of the travel companies. Some things like bonuses, free trips, 401k matching, a bunch of things that don't show up in pay packages that are important to consider when you're looking at different travel companies.
Yep, and we are also going to talk about the trip that we just got back from. So stay tuned. Jared's going to get this shared in a couple groups. And then we'll kind of get started here. So thank you guys that are tuning in tonight and have been tuning in for our weekly videos. So as some of you guys may know, my name is Whitney and this is Jared. We are both traveling physical therapists. We have been working as travel therapists for almost 4 years, and we both started when we were new grads. So it's been a pretty fun ride. We've worked with a bunch of different companies throughout our time. We've definitely learned a lot. So we want to share some information with you guys today about some different benefits that we feel like from different companies, and not just talking about benefits like their pay or their actual like insurance and that sort of thing, but just some like extras to think about when choosing a travel company. So many of you guys may know us from our Travel Therapy Mentor website. We run that along with a colleague of ours, Travis. And then we also have our personal blog, Fifth Wheel PT. So thank you guys for following along with our story and our adventures on both of our websites. If you guys are tuning in, just go ahead and leave us a comment below. Hey, say hey, tell us who you are. Tell us what brings you here. I see a few people that we know that we've talked to before. Jeff, thanks for joining. Hi, Lauren. So we got a few new people signing on, and then we'll get started talking about the trip we just took and some other cool benefits of some companies that we want to talk about tonight. So Jared's getting this shared in a couple groups so more people can join the conversation, and then we'll get going. So what's up tonight, Jeff, Lauren, everybody else that's on? Say hey. Hi, Haley. Haley says she's looking forward to hearing about our trip. We're super excited. I'm a little bit missing my voice from having too much fun during the trip. You can also see that we definitely got a little bit of color, got a little bit of sun while we were there. So yeah, we're super excited to talk about it tonight. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for following along. Okay, so what is this trip that we're talking about? So some of you guys that follow our story or know us personally know that we just got back from a trip to the Dominican Republic. So this trip that we went on is called Club Core Med. So this is a trip that's hosted by Core Medical Group, which is one of the travel companies that we work with. Oh, thanks, Jeff. Jeff said he liked the Frisbee pictures of Jared on the beach. So here's our model, our Frisbee model, and I'm our Frisbee photographer.
I'm not very good with the Frisbee, so she got some pictures of like the only good moments. So
yeah, pretty good action shots. There will be way more pictures to come, so stay tuned. I've got a ton of cool pictures. It was hard to take a single bad picture in the Dominican Republic because it was absolutely gorgeous. So for those of you guys that are just joining the conversation, I see a few new people signed on. Just say hey below, let us know who you are and what brings you here tonight. Hi Ryan, thanks for tuning in. So what I was getting at is the trip that we just went on, they call it Club Core Med. So Core Medical Group, shout out to you guys. We really appreciate them so much for the opportunity for going on this trip. It was a really amazing experience. So what is Club Core Med and why do they have this trip? So this is the only company that we know of that does this type of thing. So as an incentive to their travelers that work with them, they offer the possibility to earn a free trip. And it really is a free all-inclusive trip that you go on. And it's not just like one of those things where they say, we'll give you a travel voucher and you'll go on a trip at your leisure. The really, really cool thing is it's a trip with their whole company and all the other travelers that work with them. Yeah. So it was such a fun networking event that we got to go on. So
yeah, there was over 400 other travelers there. So it was a really, really cool experience to be able to meet a bunch of other travelers. And what's a really cool thing about meeting travelers is you always have something in common. So you go there and you find maybe like a nurse that's traveling and you instantly have stuff to talk about. Like, oh, where have you been? What's housing been like for you? Like all these things you have to talk about. So it's like anyone you run into and talk to there, you're already friends. It's
right,
pretty cool.
It's like instant friends. It was so neat. We had never been to anything like it before because it wasn't just therapists. Like we know some of the therapists in our kind of online community that we keep up with on Facebook and that sort of thing. And it was really great to get to meet them in person. But we met a ton of other people, travel nurses and other healthcare disciplines that we never knew, PTs that we never knew that maybe aren't as active in our social networking groups. So we met a ton of awesome people. We just had a blast. So this year's trip, Club Core Med, was in Dominican Republic, Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. In the past, it's been in Mexico, and they're starting to switch it up a little bit and do some different places. They've done Mexico a few years in a row, and this was their first time at this resort. And then next year, they're going to be doing the trip at the same resort in Punta Cana. So if any of you guys are interested in learning more about the trip, please feel free to send us a message, and we can help you understand how you might even be able to qualify to take the trip next year.
Yep.
So let's talk about some of the ways that you can qualify for the Club Core Med trip.
So you get points for working a certain number of hours. So it's a point system, and you have to have 4 points to qualify, and you get a point for every, I think it's 440 hours you work, which is 11 weeks. So if you did it just based on, is it 440 or
something like that? Essentially, it's more or less one contract. I see Jeremy's tuning in, so if Jeremy wants to share any information on it as well, and we can also link to the page where they talk about the qualifications. But essentially, more or less 1 point per contract, basically, like roughly a 13-week contract.
Around there, but it also has enough time built in there where you can take a week, at least a week off between contracts. So they don't expect you to work every week of the year.
Right.
And then you also get extra points for things like taking a home health contract. You get points for extending a contract. You get points for referrals.
And you get points for if you've taken the trip in the past. So you get credit for being on last year's trip in addition to any points that you earn for the coming year. You rack up these points throughout the year. So I think the qualification period is like either October to October, or maybe it's December to December, something like that. So we were able to earn the points from last year. Jared was actually able to earn 7 points. So 4 points gives you the trip. 6 points you can bring yourself and a guest. 7 points you can bring yourself, a guest, and you get an additional voucher for either a spa, $100 spa gift certificate, or a $100 travel excursion while you're on the trip. So it was just such an incredible experience, and huge shout out to Core Medical Group. It was awesome. We loved it.
It was a lot of fun.
We definitely, like I said, we partied, we had fun, we networked, we soaked up the sun. I can't wait to share more pictures with you guys because it was just a beautiful experience, a beautiful place to visit. The water was incredible. The beaches were great. The weather, you couldn't have asked for better weather.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, so, those are some things about the trip. We loved it. We could talk about it we could go on and on. I could tell you about all the delicious food we ate and all the dancing we did and all the drinks we drank and, all that fun stuff. But I'll show you the pictures later. So we want to talk about how this benefit kind of links in and compares with some other benefits you might get from other companies. So basically this trip that Core Med offers is more or less like a bonus. So some companies, like even permanent companies and that sort of thing, might offer you the incentive of like a cash bonus. Like, oh, work with us for a certain amount of time and we'll give you this bonus. We've also worked with another company that you work a certain number of hours and they give you like an hour up to 8 hours of PTO. So you could accrue it in that way. Whereas the incentive that Club Core Med provides, or Core Med provides, is if you do a certain number of contracts with us, or there's other ways that you can earn points, you earn this free trip. Now explain how it's treated as like a bonus.
Yeah, so you still pay taxes on any bonus that you earn. So something like a free trip, you would pay taxes on the value of the trip. Or if you got a cash bonus, you'd pay, as long as it's a taxable cash bonus, which any bonus should be taxable, you would get taxed on the value of the bonus. So you still get, you pay taxes on these things, but still the value of what you're getting is obviously worth way more than the taxes are worth.
Right. Jeff wants to know how many days and nights the trip was. So we left on Wednesday morning and we came back on Sunday night. So it was like 5 days, 4 nights. So more or less 3 full days and 2 half days. The cool thing was you book through a travel agent with Core Medical Group, and they help set up your flights for you, and they're really flexible. So if you wanted to fly in early and pay your own way for your first couple nights of the stay, or leave late, they'll allow your plane ticket to be flexible a couple of days before or after. And we kind of made the rookie mistake of just working Monday and Tuesday and flying out Wednesday morning. But a lot of the people who'd been there before realized that could feel a little rushed. So they actually came early and then just paid for their own first couple days. And so we feel if we go in the future, that's what we would do. Yeah. Probably get there a couple days early and pay for our own place to stay for the first couple nights, and then feel more relaxed and less rushed.
Yep, definitely. We talked about next year possibly, if we qualify for the trip again, to get there a couple days early, stay in an Airbnb or something like that to get more of a local experience, because you don't really get much of the experience of the country when you're at a resort. So it'd be awesome to have a little longer trip, get to experience the actual culture a little bit, and then go to the resort for 3 or 4 days would be really nice.
Yeah. So there's a lot more we could tell you guys about this. If you guys are interested in learning more about the Club Corps Med trip, just comment below and just comment Club Corps Med, and we can send you a message and send you some more information about that. We'll link to the page where they talk about earning the points. So if you're interested in the Corps Med trip and maybe how you could qualify in the future, just comment below Club Corps Med.
Yep. So the purpose of this video is to talk about the intangible benefits. So I wrote an article about this a couple weeks ago because I didn't know how else to say it. It might not be the best way to phrase this, or it might not make sense to you guys, but in my mind it made sense. So intangible meaning that you don't get these benefits on your paycheck, or they're not direct benefits that if you were talking to someone about your pay or whatever, that would even show up, right? Or if you were talking to someone about, oh, how much does your health insurance cost? These are things that don't show up in your paycheck. So there's a ton of different intangible benefits that I think that companies offer, and those should be taken into account when you're choosing a company.
Yeah. So one of them obviously is like a free gift. Now some other companies offer free gifts in other forms. Maybe it's not a trip. Maybe it's just some kind of freebie, like they send you some swag or they send you whatever throughout the year. We have heard from some people that they say like, that's not important to me. They're like, I'd rather them just give me an extra $50 per week on my contract and stop spending money on swag and free trips and stuff like that. So I don't know, what is y'all's feedback on that? Let us know below what's kind of your swing point. Like, would you rather have these cool incentives, or would you rather just have a little bit more money? Some people have different opinions on that.
I'm on the fence about this. So I would almost always say that I would rather have the money, but a trip is really cool. Like, that was a really cool experience. Whereas, I don't want to get things like a free book bag or a free water bottle that they ship to me, or flowers or something. I've seen some companies go out of their way to send travelers flowers or something like that on their first day, which I feel like is nice, but I don't really want someone going out of their way to do that. And I would just rather have that extra money in my weekly pay. You know what I mean?
And some people, that really means a lot to them. Like, that's heartwarming to them. So it's very different. But Jeremy commented, I believe in the culture, and I totally agree that the trip felt very different than, oh, I'm going to send you some swag a couple times a year with some candy or whatever. The trip was like not only a bonus and for like a monetary bonus, but it was an experience, like an experience unlike any I've ever had, because I've never met that many other travelers in person, and it really felt like we were just part of something bigger, like part of a community, and that was really awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
So some other intangible benefits, kind of getting away from like the physical, gift type of benefits, more in terms of like actual benefits. So another thing that we think is important that you can't necessarily put a dollar amount on is companies that offer day one insurance. So this is sort of like a random benefit that you may not think about when you're first talking to a travel company about the jobs they have available and the money they can offer you. But does their insurance start right away, or does it start later? This is something that might be more important to someone who knows they have a lot of medical things and they feel very comfortable having continuous insurance coverage, whereas it might not be that important to someone who carries their own insurance, or it's just not that important to them.
Yeah, we've met some travelers or talked to some travelers that having day one insurance is more important to them than making an extra $50 per week if they had to wait 2 weeks to get insurance, or 3 weeks or whatever. For us, we don't have that many medical issues. We don't really use our health insurance that much, so we would much rather make more than we would have a company that has day one insurance.
Yeah.
So if, obviously if we have an offer from two companies for the same amount for the same job, and one has day one insurance and the other doesn't, then yeah, that might sway us a little bit, but it's not a huge benefit for us. Whereas for other people, that can be a big benefit.
Yeah. Now Lauren just commented, and she said that she doesn't care about the swag. She does care about bonus of trips or CEUs or that sort of thing. So CEUs is another one we actually had on here.
Yep.
So we've worked with some companies that offer CEU either reimbursement, and some of them it would be something like, okay, per contract, we're going to guarantee you this amount of CEU reimbursement. Whereas some other ones might say, okay, there's one company we work with that offers you day one MedBridge access. So it's not really per se coming out of your pay weekly. It's just something they have a subscribed membership for all their healthcare workers. And so you get CEUs through them while you're on contract with them. So for that 13 weeks, you could log into MedBridge every night and take a CEU course and get all your CEUs done. We had another company that it wasn't MedBridge, but it was like homeceuconnection.com.
Yep. Same
thing. They give you a subscription to that website while you're on contract with them to go ahead and get a few CEUs while you're on contract, which is pretty convenient. So maybe those types of incentives might sway you to work with one company or another. Now there's always the argument that any kind of reimbursement or any kind of incentive or something is in some way coming out of the overhead of the company. And maybe that's true, but again, like Jared said, if you're comparing side by side 2 jobs with 2 different companies, the weekly pay is about the same, they're both going to reimburse for your license, and one of them offers free CUs and the other one doesn't, then in that particular case, it's not affecting you.
Yeah.
So that might be something
if
that's
the pay is comparable, a lot of these things are things that would just sway you one direction or the other. If you had the same offer from 2 companies for the same job,
Right.
then you would look at these kind of things and be like, hey, well, this company, I could get $200 per contract in CU reimbursement. Like that's significant for me.
Right.
Or MedBridge membership. That's something that we really value.
Yeah. Okay, so some other things are whether the company offers a 401k. This is going to be more important to some people than not. I know a lot of people that they're only investing a small amount, and it's enough for them to be able to just invest in their own personal IRA, or maybe they have a stock market account or whatever. Maybe they don't care about 401k, or maybe they're only going to be with company B for 1 contract, so it's not important for them because they're not going to even waste the time to sign up for the 401k. But for some people like us early in our career, it was really important that we did work with a company that had 401k, and they also offered matching.
Yes, that was we would not have worked with a company when we started for the first 3 years or so that didn't have a 401k option.
Right.
Because both of us were maxing out our 401ks every single year. And, that would have been a big deterrent for us, whereas other people, that might not matter at all. So that's why it's more of an intangible benefit. There is a monetary benefit to having a 401k because of the tax savings, but that's something that's hard to measure. And it's going to vary from person to person. So I feel like that's more of an intangible thing that some companies offer and some don't. And the thing about the 401k matching, you also have to consider vesting periods with those 401ks, because some companies will offer a 401k and they'll say that they match it, but the vesting period is so long that most travelers never even get to benefit from the match, right? So that's just like something that they can throw in there that sounds good, but then they almost never have to pay out on, right? So most travelers they might travel for 1 or 2 years, and a vesting period might be 3 years. So they know they're not going to ever have to actually match any of the traveler's pay, or very few travelers will make it that long.
Yeah. And so for some people, like especially a lot of new grads that we talk to, that their primary objective for their first couple of years is just making as much money, as much cash possible so they can pay down their loans aggressively, and they have no intention of doing a 401k. For them, that might not be important. They don't care about company B that has a 401k with a match, because they're like, I'm not going to contribute for the first 3 years, which we don't really advise, but that's how some people's prerogative is. So they'd rather go with company A that can offer them $1,900 a week, and they're not messing around with 401k because all they care about is more cash in their pocket each week.
Yeah, and that's something to mention too. I see a lot of new travelers, especially new grads, they'll come out in school and they'll find a really small company, and they'll find a job in like California or something that's home health that's already really high paying. And they're working with a company that doesn't offer any of these benefits we're talking about, right? They just offer the highest pay. And those travelers will, you'll see them sometimes in various groups, and they'll be bragging about how much they get paid by their company. And they'll be like, oh, you should never take a contract for less than $2,000 a week or something crazy. And it kind of gets on our nerves, because it's like, yeah, you can make that much, but you have to also realize what you're giving up. And a lot of these companies, the bigger companies that offer a lot of these benefits that don't directly go into your pay.
Right.
Better health insurance, 401ks and matching, things like we're going to talk about 40-hour guarantees and trips, and there's all these other benefits that don't directly show up in pay. And the thing about pay, all these topics are so nuanced. Every situation is different. Every company is different. And it irritates us a little bit when people go in there and they just say, oh, you should never take a contract for less than $2,000 and all this stuff. And if you want micro recruiter information, and the reason they're saying these things is because they're trying to get referral bonuses to send people to their recruiters. And they're trying to create these I guess posts on Facebook. They get a bunch of likes and all this attention.
Sensationalism.
Yeah, basically sensationalism. And so these are some things that you should consider in addition to just pay.
Yeah, and so sometimes it's really easy to just like be enticed by these things, like and it's sometimes you're just comparing apples to oranges. So we'll see a lot of people like these posts on Facebook. It'll be like, oh my God, who's your recruiter? I want to make $2,000 a week, but you're not listening to the whole picture. Maybe they were in San Francisco and they were paying a ton for housing, and they're working home health, and maybe you're not comfortable with that, and then you get that recruiter's information and you're like, oh, well, the jobs I want and the places I want, they don't pay like that.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Or they didn't take a health insurance benefit, so they got more money on their contract because they didn't need that. Or there's so many different factors that go into the weekly pay number, and so many things that can either add to that or take away from that.
And you kind of want to factor in too, like these places that do different reimbursements for different things. Like you have to understand when you're comparing company A to company B for yourself. We got sucked into this during one of our first times we ever switched to a different company, and they were like $17.50 a week, and we were like, wow, with our other company we were only making $15.50 a week. And we got so excited about it, and we just jumped into it, and we're like, yeah, this is great, that we completely forgot to ask the things that we had come to expect from the other company, like license and travel reimbursement and 40-hour guarantees. Because when we got to that, I was like, wait, I'm not getting that additional money over here. So they were kind of comparing apples to oranges. So I ended up actually making about the same amount, but it sounded like I was making so much more.
Yep.
So just some things to consider, but we're kind of off on a tangent, I think, about that.
Definitely.
If you guys are just joining in, I see a few people have joined in, just say hi below and let us know who you are. Let us know what's important to you when you're looking at a company, because there's so many different things that are important to some people that are important to others.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to say this because pay is always my primary concern, but there are some things that I found traveling that I do value more than just the highest dollar amount. So what do you think?
Yeah.
Are these intangible benefits or things like day one insurance, things that you don't really get a dollar value, are those important to you?
Right.
Or is it all about pay?
So a couple other ones, we kind of alluded to this 40-hour guarantee. So we'll explain what that is. So 40-hour guarantee on a contract, sometimes it's dependent on the facility and not the company. But there are some companies that we found that for the most part always can do a 40-hour guarantee except in rare circumstances. So what a 40-hour guarantee is, regardless of the census at your facility, the company says that they're going to pay you for 40 hours. So that means that you can't get there and they think that they have a full week of work for you, but suddenly they're like, oh, the census is kind of low. We don't actually have a full week of work for you, so we're going to cut the traveler because we have to pay them more to be here. So we're going to cut your hours, and you only end up working 30 hours that week. So here you thought you were getting paid for 40 hours of work, but you only get paid for 30.
Yep. So the 40-hour guarantee, every single contract we've ever taken has that, because we want to make sure that if we're the ones that get our hours cut, or we have a bunch of cancellations, or an outpatient, we've had days where our last 4 patients might cancel. And in that situation, if you don't have a 40-hour guarantee, you leave and you just get paid for what you work. If you do have a 40-hour guarantee, you leave and you still get paid for the full day. And it's really awesome to get paid for like 2 or 3 hours that you didn't work.
Yeah. The other thing that happens sometimes, and when you talk about 40-hour guarantee, you need to ask your recruiter or your company specifically what it covers, because sometimes it only covers low census. Sometimes it does not cover holidays. So if you know that you're working a contract that goes through Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, those are 3 holidays right there that you might be thinking, oh, I'm an outpatient, like they're only going to be open 4 days that week, not 5, but I'm still going to get paid 40 hours. But a lot of companies, there's an exclusion in the clause, and they won't pay you for a holiday if the facility is closed.
That's something that we didn't realize so we took most of our first contracts, probably the first 5 or 6 contracts with the same company, and we got paid no matter what. Like, unless we asked for the time off, we got paid 40 hours all the time. So we worked through Thanksgiving when the facility was closed. They were closed on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Day. We got paid for all that time. And then we went to a different company and we expected the same thing. And then the clinic was closed for a holiday and they're like, oh, 40-hour guarantee doesn't include holidays. And it's like,
well, then what's it for?
Yeah, what is it for?
So you need to ask that question. And I mean, it's not a big deal. Like if they're closed and you still want that job and you don't care if you get paid for that day or not, it's not a big deal, but it's important to know going in.
Yeah.
So you don't get in the middle of the contract and be like, what the heck, and be all upset.
Yep.
You want to know that going in. Like, read your contract and know what does the 40-hour guarantee and what does it not cover.
Yeah, it's really not a big deal if you know, but it is a big deal if you're expecting it and you don't get it, because then you're like, damn, I was thinking I was going to get that money and now I'm not. So that can be a big deal for.
Another example of a facility closure that you'd want to know if your 40-hour guarantee covers is for inclement weather. We have worked places where there was like an ice storm or a snowstorm and they closed.
Or hurricanes.
Hurricanes. Or Jared had one, the hurricane, and the clinic got flooded.
Yeah, had a flood day.
Yeah, so he had a flood day and he got paid for that.
Yeah.
So you want to know if those things are going to be covered. And sometimes I've talked to some of our recruiters that say, well, even if the facility doesn't guarantee those hours for certain like oddball situations like that, maybe the company's willing to step in and still pay you for that day. So that's something important to ask about.
And so, we're talking about these 40-hour guarantees. Most of the time, it's not going to be a big factor, right? So in a normal contract, you might only have maybe 10 hours or so that get covered because of low census, or maybe no hours. Maybe you work even overtime, so that doesn't really even apply to you, right? But so in 3 years of traveling, I think that I got over somewhere like 120 hours of time paid that I didn't actually work between like holidays, low census, hurricanes, snow, all these things we were talking about. So it can add up to quite a bit. That's 3 weeks of work that I wouldn't have gotten paid for if I didn't have that 40-hour guarantee.
Yep.
So it's definitely something that I think is a big benefit, and it's something that's pretty important to us.
Yep. Okay, the last thing that we want to talk about as far as intangible benefits is working for a company that has a specific job availability. So sometimes you'll work for, there's kind of this like smaller company versus bigger company. Do they have more jobs? Do they have less jobs? Do they have higher pay? Do they have lower pay? This is one big reason that we are proponents of working with multiple companies, because then you're gonna have the best of all worlds. You're gonna have one company that might pay a little higher, but maybe this other company tends to have more jobs for those times where you're having more trouble finding jobs. So job availability is kind of an intangible benefit, because if you only work with one company and they don't necessarily have the most jobs nationwide, then you might be dealing with some downtime that you weren't expecting to have this time off because they didn't have a job available for you right away. So maybe you end up having to take a week or two between contracts because you couldn't find a job. So it's something to think about.
Yeah, and back to that story about the travelers talking about how high their weekly pay is. A lot of times the same people they're working with those really small companies that have really low overhead, and they're also taking high paying jobs to start with. So if you have a high paying job to start with, and then you're working with a company with low overhead, then yeah, you're gonna be making a lot of money. But something to consider about this job availability is I would rather make $200 a week less and have consistent work throughout the year than to make $200 a week more and have like a 2-week gap between jobs every time while I'm trying to find a job. One, because it probably ends up being, throughout the whole year, it ends up being that you make more money even though you made less weekly because you had less downtime. But the other thing is the job search is a hassle, especially while you're working. So when you're searching for jobs while you're already at a contract, you're trying to interview like after hours or on the weekend and things like that. And the shorter that job search can be for us, that's much better. So we would rather work with a company that pays a little bit less but has a lot more jobs than to work with a company that pays a ton and has very limited job availability.
Yep, and again,
especially as a couple.
sometimes that's, it just depends on who you are and a matter of preference. But yeah, like you said, especially as a couple, it's really important for us to have a job or a company that has a lot of job availability, because sometimes it's really hard to place two unless you're willing to be very flexible on setting or location. So we can always find 2 SNFs together, but we don't want to work 2 SNFs. Or we can always find like a SNF and a home health, but we don't want to do that.
Yes.
So for us, we really just want to have the most job availability, which again is why we really encourage you guys to work with multiple companies to give yourselves the most job options, kind of these benefits across the board. And again, then when it comes time, recruiter A has this, recruiter B has this, recruiter C has this, and then you can have the most options.
Yep. And the big thing here is just consider everything that goes into a job and everything that goes into each company. It's not just about pay or the health insurance benefits. There's all these other little things that go into it and can make one company better or worse than another. So when next time you see someone that's like, oh, I get paid this much with this company, think about all these other things that go into these bigger companies that are able to offer these intangible benefits that the small ones can't, and what that dollar or what those intangible benefits might mean to you in terms of dollars.
Right.
Because sometimes it could add up to more than the extra that they're making from the weekly pay.
Yeah. So we have a couple articles. We'll link to the one that Jared wrote about intangible benefits that kind of recaps what we talked about here. We also have one that's like a list of questions to ask recruiters so that you can compare them side by side. So I can link to that one as well. Do you guys have any questions for us about what we talked about or anything about benefits or different things about companies? Go ahead and comment below. We'll answer a few questions here.
Yeah, I know we have some, and
Okay.
I know we have Ryan making crazy comments here. So.
As usual. Okay. All right.
So McGregor got arrested. Is that true or is that fake news? I haven't seen anything about McGregor.
I feel like this is not pertinent to the conversation. Okay. All right, so D wants to know about Club Core Med. So I'll send you some information about Club Core Med after the video. If anybody else is tuning in and you want to know more about Club Core Med, even on the replay, just comment on Club Core Med, or you can send us a private message and we'll talk to you more about it. Let's see. So Lauren mentioned that she prefers bonuses, big bonuses like trips and CEUs. Okay, Jeff has a question for us.
I know it's different from company to company, but do you guys get offered cash bonuses much, not counting referral bonuses? So no, not really. So there are some companies that will offer that, and a lot of times it's just like shifting the money, right? So you could be like, so if I was a recruiter, I might say something like, okay, I could either pay $1,700 a week for this job, or I could pay $1,600 a week and then advertise that I will give a $1,300 bonus. So that sounds really good to travelers. So some recruiters will do that. They'll be like, hey, this job pays $1,600 a week, but you get a $1,300 bonus. Well, if you added that into the pay, it's the $1,700 that the other company probably is paying for that job. So a lot of these things, they use these benefits as like a way to sell jobs. So we don't really like the cash bonus as much. We would rather, if possible, have as much as we can tax-free, because bonuses are always taxed. So
you also want to consider if they ever offer a bonus or even any kind of reimbursement, like maybe it's travel reimbursement, that sort of thing. When is it paid out? Is it paid out at the beginning of the contract, at the end of the contract, or are they going to divide it out weekly? Beginning of the contract bonuses are wonderful because then you're guaranteed to go ahead and get this $500 or $1,000 up front. So even if you got canceled 2 weeks into the contract, you'd still have that bonus in hand, rather than it being spread out over the length of the contract. So that's really important for some people that have trouble with budgeting, or maybe just are low on cash and they literally need that money to help them like move to Hawaii. They're like, oh, yeah, I need $1,000 up front because I need to buy a plane ticket. So you want to think about it that way, versus some of them will be like, we'll pay you a completion bonus at the end. So then there's a lot of variables there because you don't know whether you might finish the contract or not, because what if you get canceled and then you never get that completion bonus? Yeah,
that is a very good point. Sometimes they'll offer those completion bonuses knowing that not everyone's going to even finish the contract, so that then they can get away with paying lower weekly pay and then never even have to pay out the bonus. Yeah. So that is a really good point.
Yeah. Okay, so Lauren wants to know, do all companies give more money if you don't take their insurance? I plan to stay on my parents' insurance because I'll just be turning 24 when I start. Is this something you have to negotiate for?
So I'm not an expert here, but it's my understanding from the reading I've done that it is a very gray area as to whether they can offer more money if you don't accept insurance benefits. I found some sources that said they're not allowed to do that. I found some sources that said that you can do that. So it's a gray area. I think most companies do not do that. They'll just be like, you make this much. If you want the benefits, you can take them. If you don't, then you still make the same amount. And I think that is probably the most legal way to go. Yeah. But there are companies that...
we've been offered companies where they say, well, are you taking the insurance or not? And then they base your pay package off that. So some companies do it. I don't know whether it's legal or not, but some companies do it. It'd be a good question to ask the recruiters when you're getting to know them and deciding who you want to work for.
Yep.
Ryan saying more nonsense about Aquaman and going to the movies. Okay, Fitz wants to know, do you negotiate with contract extensions?
So that goes back a little bit to Jeff's question, because that's probably the only time we do get bonuses. We always get some kind of bonus on our extensions, and we did not do that in the beginning, and that was a mistake. So when we were new travelers, we didn't know anything about that. Part of the reason why we write about this stuff now, so you guys can learn from it and not make the same mistakes. But yeah, so you always want to get an extension bonus. At least, we usually say at least $1 an hour more, which over a full length of a contract would be an extra $520, a 13-week contract. But ideally, probably $2 an hour more, somewhere in the $1 to $3 an hour range. So, $2 an hour is great for us, but that's an extra $1,000 that you either get added to your pay, or sometimes they'll pay it out in the form of a bonus. So we do get bonuses like that sometimes.
Jeff said to help out with Lauren's question about if you get more money if you don't take the insurance, he heard from Med Travelers that they do $1 more if you don't take the insurance. So good to know. Sharon is interested in hearing about Club Core Med, so I will send you a message after this, Sharon. So I think that's all the questions you guys have. So just to kind of recap, we had a blast at Club Core Med. We really hope to be able to go back again next year. It was wonderful. It was a great experience. We met some amazing people. I think it was definitely an intangible benefit, because even if you took the cash value, like you can opt out of the trip and take the cash instead. I would not. It was such a cool experience. Yeah. It was a wonderful vacation. It was wonderful to meet other travelers. It felt like a family. It was so much fun. So that's a really cool benefit that Core Medical Group does. There's some other cool benefits that other companies do. If you guys are interested in hearing about more of the companies that we work with, please just comment recruiter below, or you can send us a message and ask us which recruiters we work with and why we like some versus the others.
Yeah, and trust me, we have talked to so many companies now that we have weighed the pros and cons on what the benefits they offer, these intangible benefits, things like do the 40-hour guarantee, does that include things like being closed for snow and all those things. That we weigh all these things. And so the companies that we work with now are the ones that we've found that we like the most. That's a starting point for a lot of people. It doesn't mean that you will like them the most.
People
because
often
the benefits
say,
are different for everyone.
People say, like, what's the best travel company to work for? There isn't one best one. So many people have different experiences with different companies. We work with a few, and they're all slightly different, and we like them all for different reasons. We love all of our recruiters. That's a big thing. The relationship with the recruiter makes a huge difference. So some people will have a really great experience with company X, and then some people will not have a great experience with company X because their recruiter is not good. So if you guys want to hear the ones that we work with, just comment below or shoot us a message, and we'd be happy to share. If you guys have any questions about company benefits and that sort of thing, send us a message, leave us a comment.
So Jeff said, what was the name of the resort?
It was called Paradisus Punta Cana. It was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Highly recommend.
So next week, we missed yesterday. We normally do these videos on Sunday at 8. We missed yesterday because of we drove back from Charlotte, which was...
Yeah, we didn't get until 2:30 in the morning,
yeah,
so we're
dragging. We got back at 2:30, so there's no chance of making a video. But next week, we don't know what the topic's going to be yet. But if you guys have any ideas or things you want to hear about, we might just talk about the actual benefits.
We sort of skipped that. I was thinking we should probably talk about like insurance and benefits like that. Because a lot of people ask us, do you get benefits as a traveler? How does that work? Are you a W-2 employee? Are you a 1099 employee? What are the benefits like? So we can talk about that more next week. If you guys want to hear more about that, let us know.
Yeah, and I wrote a long article about that not long ago, so that's definitely something we could talk about. But if there's any other things that we haven't covered yet, we plan to keep making these videos probably Sunday nights at 8 for the most part, unless there's some reason we can't do it then. But anything you guys want to learn about or we can talk about, let us know.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, if you got value out of this video, please just leave us a comment below, like the video, share it, tag a friend. That way we can share a message with others and more people can join along with us next week.
Yep. Thanks,
so
guys.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.